now I'm on my way to meet Shawn Kimbro. I'm going to be on his boat today, out on the Chesapeake Bay, going after some stripers. His book, Chesapeake Light Tackle, was probably the best purchase that I've made in my education of how to catch stripers out in the bay. So, hoping to further my education, learning some of that stuff firsthand today.
Hey, I'm Shawn Kimbro from ChesapeakeLightTackle.com. Got a book out called Chesapeake Light Tackle, Introduction to Light Tackle Fishing on the Chesapeake Bay. Today we're going fishing off Kent Island in my boat Thunder Road. It's a 27 Judge center console. I got a 225 Honda outboard on there, and we're going to put in at, I guess we'll put into Shipping Creek ramp, run south for a ways, and look for migratory striped bass in the Chesapeake Bay. These migratory fish, they usually run together, and sometimes you'll hit a school of 20-inch fish, sometimes 25-inch fish, sometimes 30, sometimes even bigger. You hit a school of big fish, that's when real fun starts. But they're focused on one thing this time of year, and that's eating. They're looking for the bait as it comes out of the rivers. And it's mostly peanut bunker, 2-inch to 4-inch, maybe 5-inch menhaden. That's what they're looking for, and so they're moving fast. And so we're going to be running and gunning trying to find them.
Hi, Rich Jenkins. I've been fishing with Shawn for about 5 or 6 years. Looking forward to another good day.
We should get a good incoming, and stripers love currents, so I think we'll have incoming till about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and then, all right, hold on, let's run. If you see there on my GPS trails, I'm not taking the direct route to where I think the fish are going to be. I'm running the ledges. That's what I'm always doing, is running those ledges, because that's where my best chances are of finding birds. If you look right over here, you see that right on that wedge there's a group of seagulls sitting there, and then they're waiting for bait. They're waiting for fish to chase that bait up there, and that can happen. It's slack tide right now. I don't expect a lot to be going on, but you never know. So always stay over the ledges when you're going from place to place. Stop here. You see, I'm still running the ledge, and when you see big birds like that, it's a good sign that there's at least big bait. And so we're going to come off and take a look. We're kind of shallow water, but every once in a while these migratory fish will move up shallow. You see how there's birds everywhere, all over the place here. So what's happening is, you see they're not down in the water, but there's fish down deep, and they're feeding down deep, and they're injuring bait fish, and the bait fish is coming up to the surface. So the birds are flying around, they're looking for that injured bait fish, and like what's going right here, that's where an injured bait fish just came up. So that means that's where there's fish, but they're feeding deep. So they look to me like they're a little thicker out here. All right, we're coming up on the ledge. That's a nice place for there to be feeding fish.
Hey Shawn, do you always jig off the bottom, or you ever do anything for fish in the middle of the water column?
I like to fish on the bottom, but in this situation, if you look at the fish finder there, you see that the fish are distributed pretty well throughout the water. We're in 36 feet. There's some fish on the bottom, but there's also some fish up here at 10 feet. So my strategy in that situation is just get that lure out there and then let it drop. So I'm going to let it get all the way down to the bottom. That's why I like these rods with very little cork on the front, because I can tune in. I can get a couple of fingers right up there on the blank and feel it when it hits the bottom. It's a soft bottom here, so it's not going to be much of a click when it hits the bottom. It's just a slight little thud. And there it is right there, and there's my fish. So I just felt it hit the bottom. So I'm gonna pound the bottom a couple of times. Watch that rod tip. You can see, sometimes you just have to watch your rod tip, but I can feel it. So I've been on the bottom 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come up.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you off. Thanks.
Now I'm just jigging up through the water column, burying my retrieve. Looking for that strike. That's a big flock of loons right there. That's a good signal that we got big bait. Those loons don't want little glass minnows. They're looking for big menhaden.
Right now we're leaving a spot. We just caught a couple of fish, but they were small ones, so we're gonna keep moving.
You've probably heard the old saying, you never leave fish to find fish. Nothing could be farther from the truth on the Chesapeake Bay when the migratory fish are here. Always leave little fish to find big fish, because when they're biting, they're biting. It's just a matter of finding the schools of bigger fish.
Can you see the peanut bunker you were talking about on the depth finder?
Yeah, I will be able to see it. I'm not on them right now, but when we get over them, I'll be able to see it. I can really see them defined very nicely on the structure scan. There's some fish right here. That's a small school. Kind of hard to catch them when they're that way. I like to see them a lot thicker than that. That's a wide fish. Pretty fish. Go, baby. Let's get another one. That looks like a decent fish. Not too bad. Pretty fish.
Oh, another one right behind you.
When you're on them, you're on them.
Yeah. Wow.
Go. Okay. All right, good. Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate it. I can see it. Chesapeake Lake. So we had pretty good fish back farther up in the river. You notice most of them were 22, 23-inch fish. That's fun fishing, but there's a lot of boats around, a lot of people, you know, smoking and joking, cutting up and carrying on, having a good time. We're looking for bigger fish, so I'm trying to get out away from the crowds. And right now I'm just running the ledges, looking for birds, but staying over the ledges, moving from place to place. And you can see there's nobody here. Of course, there's no fish, but we hope that'll change. And that ledge can be good, especially on an incoming current, because you want to fish the ledge that the current is pushing against. That's where your best chances are for a big fish, is to fish that ledge that the current's pushing against. And that goes for a bridge piling or a rock pile. I don't care if you're at the Bay Bridge Tunnel or the Bay Bridge. Always fish the push side of the structure. So that's what we're going to do here. And I bet you there'll be birds there when we get there.
Rockfish feed well in areas where there's a lot of current. And one thing that'll cause the current is the tide. When the tidal flow is at its maximum, that's a good time for them to eat, to ambush prey. and it's really going to get cranking when you have a bottleneck. You have a lot of water up here. This is the bay bridge, and it funnels into a bottleneck where the bay is narrow. So as it comes through, it's really going to speed up through here. The same thing happens at some of these, you know, these pinches in some of the rivers, especially if you can find a place where you have, say like right here, you have 38 feet. In pretty short order, it comes up to 5 feet. You know, there's a pinch this way, but there's also, if you look at it from a side view, it's also a pinch this way, where here's a lot of water, and all of that is constricting into, you know, a narrower space. And the fish will position on the upcurrent side of it, and as things come up to them, that's where they're going to jam it. So you want to move your jig, you want to find a place where there's a lot of these lines stacked together close, and you want to move your jig casting up into the current and then bring your jig with it, preferably up the drop off.
So we're at slack tide right now. We just came off the dead low tide, and the current's not moving at all. So fishing is tough. Rockfish like moving current. But my best chances for finding fish now are to move south, because I'm looking for the incoming. The incoming is obviously coming up. The wave is coming up the bay. So if I hit my spot south, I increase my chances of having more productive time on the tide. That's a sick fish. That's what you're seeing there is signs of mycosis. Actually, I think it starts on the inside, and it kind of eats its way out. And you know, they don't really know what kind of mortality these fish have, but I just don't see a fish like that surviving. I'm surprised he's out here running with the schools. They hang right in there, but you can tell as soon as you catch one if they're sick, because they just don't have the energy. They just kind of swim right back to the boat, and they don't fight. And it's kind of sad to see them. But I think I read that a great big percentage of the fish in the Chesapeake have it. Decent fish. But it always helps to get away from the crowds. You know, it's just one of those things. There he is. Pretty in that clear water, aren't they? Yeah. The blue tail. He acted like he might have wanted to bite. Nice. Nice.
Under the chin, under the chin. Got him Jamie style. I tell you, they were short bites, and he must have hit 3 or 4 times.
Pretty fish.
Good way to start the day out. Nice fat fish, nice and healthy. Look at that purple on him.
It's like ocean fish, don't it?
Yeah, it sure does. Is that little
Sea lice?
something on him?
Yeah, I don't see any.
That gets bigger.
See this fish right here. I'm not too big on keeping too many fish, but when I keep a fish, see how wide he is? And that's just wide and just the right size. So that's a box fish. Pretty fish.
Yep. He was in the middle of the water column, and that's the first time I've caught one middle of the water column jigging like that. I always figured you'd had to do it on the top it off the bottom, but you know, they're near the surface.
Look at that. He wanted it. Long cast and start jigging as soon as it gets to the water. That's unusual, but that's what's working right now, so you never know. The trick is to keep changing it up until you figure it out, but they're wanting that lure coming just like that.
With the fog coming in, probably gave them reason to come up to the surface. You know, their eyes are, well, would you say they work better?
Yeah, their eyes are very sensitive to light, and so they don't like to feed when the sun's out and high. They prefer low light. So this fog coming in has actually helped us today. It's kept the fish biting.
They're up near the surface, and I had been fishing with my normal 1 ounce head and a 6-inch bait, and I had to switch over to, Rich was nice enough to give me some of these are 1/2 ounce in a 5-inch gulp. It's just a lot smaller. I mean, it's an inch difference, but you know, it's a more slender profile, and that's what's working out here. Just below the surface, below the gulls.
It's still alive. Birds haven't found it yet. There he goes. Make good rockfish bait. So what's going on here is there's some fish down deep, and they're hitting that bait like that. Sometimes the bait gets wounded, it comes up to the surface, and that's what's got those birds going crazy over there. When that bait fish comes up to the surface, the boats go nuts. Some people make the mistake of coming in on birds like this and looking for splashes because they're looking for breaking fish, but that's not what has the birds here. What has the birds here is just wounded bait. So you just got to stop and drop a jig.
He's not very big. No, he's bigger than that.
Beginning.
No, I don't want to either.
That'll work. It's pretty.
Now watch how it's done. You ready?
Here we go.
You might have to take 2 here.
What size jig head you got on there?
That's 1 ounce.
An ounce?
Yep.
On a 7-inch bait?
About.
What you got there?
I thought it was on tape. That's why I pulled one out there. It's right at the end.
So what I'm doing here is on the jig is you just got to make sure that you keep a tight line when you jig. Let that thing drop. Well, there's a fish. I didn't really mean to catch him that fast. But it's real important to use the right size jig head. The lighter jig head you use, the more action you're going to get to your lure. But you don't want to use too light. Now, we got really good conditions today where it's calm and it's just not a whole lot of current out here and a whole lot of wind. And so you can get away with a 1/2 ounce, which is what I've got on. So what I'm doing is casting out. I want that lure to be coming through the water at an angle and letting it go all the way down to the bottom. So I feel it hit the bottom, and it just did. Took it that long. And then I'm going to jig it back up through the water column. If the fish are on the bottom, I want it to pound that bottom every time. But since they're not, they're kind of suspended, and I'm just letting it sink back down a couple of feet and then jigging it back up. And there's a strike. I missed it. Jig faster after a strike. So now I'm going to let it sink back, and that's the advantage of a bait caster right there, is you can let it sink back to the fish, and there he is. With a spinning reel, I'd had to reel in and recast. With a bait caster, all you got to do is push a button, put it right back down there. So we've been looking for migratory fish all afternoon, but the fish we're in now aren't really. It's a pretty good fish on here, but these all seem like they're 3-year-old fish, maybe some 4-year-old fish. When you hit a wave of migratory fish, you know it right away. I mean, they're great, big, broad-shouldered, pretty fish. It's a decent fish. And they've just got kind of a purple sheen. And a lot of them are wearing sea lice. They've got a parasite on them, and that sea lice require a lot of salinity. So they don't last on them very long in the bay. So they fall off after a couple of days in the bay. So if you get a fish with sea lice on it, you pretty much know it's come from the ocean. Pretty fish. Now that's probably, you know, that I bet that fish has been in the ocean and just come in the bay recently. Just because it's such a pretty and clean fish. Our bay fish just don't look that way. They just don't look that clean. They're fat this time of year because they're feeding up in the fall. Take off, buddy. So, every once in a while, you'll hit a school of really nice fish, and I'm talking about 40-inch migratory fish. It doesn't happen much, but when it happens, it makes it all worthwhile. It's really fun fishing. I mean, I'll take these 25-inch fish. You get a 30, 35 every once in a while, but when you hit a slug of really nice fish, that's when it's fun. There he is. I'm looking at my structure scan now, scanning for bait, and I'm looking at 100 feet on both sides. And if you see there's a nice bait ball right here, seeing a little bit of it on this side too. It means I just came right over the top of it. Here's another one off to our right. Look at all that. Now I can zoom in a little bit on that. You can see them a little better. What we're coming across right here is turbulence. There's a crabber that just came through here. And so you can see that turbulence on the screen. That's just bubbles that are put in the water. Here's your bait over here. That's peanut bunker. That's what you want to see. We saw a gannet sitting on the water back there. So one of the mistakes that beginning jiggers make is they have too much slack in their line. And it comes from dropping the rod tip too fast. So you see what I'm doing right there? See all that slack in the line? And what happens when you do that is you can't feel the fish bite. The fish can have the lure in its mouth and spit it out, and you'll never know. And it also causes your line to wrap around your rod tip, so that you always have to reach up here and do what I'm doing right there, untangle it. So the trick to it is keeping your line tight. So watch this. You can still give it a good quick snap, kind of a down and up, but then you're riding that lure down naturally. You want it to fall at about the speed it would normally fall, but you just got to keep that slack out of the line. And then the next step, if you're using a low profile reel with a rod with not a whole lot of cork up here, you can get a couple of fingers on the blank and get even added sensitivity. That way, when that fish hits that lure, I'm going to feel him. But the trick is slack. The enemy is slack.
While you do want to pop the jig off the bottom as quick as you can for a nice quick rip up off the bottom, when you drop your rod tip back down, it should not come down fast because that'll throw slack in the line. And if you get bit with slack in the line, you're just not going to feel the bite. As opposed to lowering your rod tip nice and slowly is going to give you that straight, taut line. Then you're going to feel the bite.
I'm making some adjustments to my jigging based on some of Shawn's coaching, and I think it reminds me a lot of blade baiting for smallmouth on the reservoir. I'm doing shorter hops. That way I'm getting more touches on the bottom. I'm not doing these great big sweeping whop, and then it takes forever to get back down. Short little boom, 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 instead of a big jump. So that was on a short hop. That's one of my better ones for the day. It's pretty
Nice.
there. Nice one. All right, let's let her go.
To learn more from Shawn, check out his blog or order a copy of his book, available at ChesapeakeLightTackle.com.